It's True Value Hardware, making your life easier.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the best little home improvement show in the 4 states as we sit down with Denny Heydrich from Heydrich's True Value right here at 15th and National in Fort Scott. We talk about great projects that you can do around the home, out in the yard, get everything ready for springtime. And Denny, good morning. Good to have you here.
Good morning. How's it going, Larry?
It is a beautiful Saturday morning. You gotta love springtime in southeast Kansas. So,
really, that's for sure. Great time of the year.
That's absolutely true. And Denny, today we're going to be talking about an indoor project that, boy, a lot of people don't like to bite this off because we're in the day of sheetrock and mudding and those types of things. But living in a historical community like we do here in Fort Scott and a lot of homes around this area, there's some plaster walls out there that will crack and get some holes in them by accident sometime that we need to fix. So, and plaster walls and plaster and lath, that was the old standard.
Yeah, that pre-dedicated or that was before the sheetrock walls and everything. And it is a little bit, it's not hard to do, but it takes some practice to patch those on that. You got to have a little bit of the talent, and everything. And so that's what we're going to hopefully help people with today.
All right. So we're going to give you the beginning steps, the baby steps on how to fix these. And maybe you've got a hole somewhere in the wall that you can start that's not going to be real noticeable. Maybe that's the place to start and kind of work your way out from there. So,
Good place to practice.
And there are several different types of injuries you can do to a plaster wall. And let's talk about one that's probably the most common, and that is when we're dealing with cracks.
Yeah, the cracks and everything.
Settling and all the things that happen to the
house
foundation.
is settled and they crack all the time. And, of course, that's not just plaster walls. That's you'll run into it with a lot of your drywall walls, too. But, the first thing that you want to start and do, because plastering is messy business on that. So you want to make sure, get everything, maybe if there's furniture in the room, go ahead and get it moved to the middle of the room. You don't have to take it out. But then what you want to do is then you want to put down your drop cloths and stuff like that around the outside edge. Make sure and tape them to like the floorboard or to the baseboard.
Sure.
So that it can't pull away as you're working and everything. But definitely protect your floors, especially if a lot of these homes that have plaster walls and stuff like that, a lot of them have really pretty nice hardwood floors. On that. So you want to protect those. You don't want that plaster getting ground into the outside to top finish and everything on.
And whether you're painting or plastering or whatever you're doing, I know if I don't tape down my drop cloth, the minute that it pulls away 1 inch from the wall, that's the 1 inch that's going to get the paint or the plaster on it. So
that's where it drops.
Tape it down.
Yeah, absolutely. Tape it down on there. So we got that done. We're all ready to go there. When you're tearing out, or a lot of times, when you've got a hole, you need to make sure and make it a little bit, rather than, you want a good uniformity around the edge of the hole, so that everything sticks and holds in place.
Right.
And everything. So sometimes you'll need to take and peck out a little bit of the plaster that is there, so that you make a nice square hole, something not square, but squared sides.
Sure.
So that it can bond and everything there. So, you'll need a shop vac to suck up the stuff out of that hole that you're cleaning up, so that you've got all that dust and everything out of there. And it's not going to be sticking to the dust. It's going to stick to the rest of the plaster that's there.
All right. So we're talking about a crack specifically. Do I need to open up that crack a little bit more?
Yes, it's always best to go ahead and give if you can, like we've talked before, a V shape makes it a lot harder for the material to work its way out.
Okay.
So if you go ahead and make a V shape of it, of the crack, and then you can fill in a little bit better. And then you also want to fill, whenever you're doing any patching on plaster, one of the things about that you want to make sure and do is go on out past the crack and feather it out all the way around. You don't want to just stop at the edge of the crack and call it good, which you can do that with drywall,
right.
And everything like that, with a lot of your spackling and everything. And sometimes spackling If it's a small crack, spackling may fix it just
Sure.
fine, and you don't have to get the plaster and mix it up.
And I have used spackling for like maybe a nail hole that's in the middle of the wall that I didn't want there anymore. Maybe a very small crack. I've been able to use spackling to get by it. But boy, if the crack gets to be big or the hole is good size, spackling is you're fighting uphill the whole entire time.
Yeah, it's just not going to stay there. And the other thing too, when you've got a crack, the best way to really repair a crack, and like you're talking one like that's fairly large, you want to also use some of the fiberglass tape, and you put that over the top of the crack. And what that'll do is when that plaster and everything bonds to it, that pretty much puts an end to that cracking further, because the flexibility of the fiberglass will kind of keep that from cracking any farther.
All right.
On that. So you put that down first, then you put your plaster. These are the large cracks that we're talking about.
Sure.
And the plaster you can get it in a pre-mix tub. We carry small pre-mix tubs of it, but we also have the 25-pound bags of powder.
You can make a lot of plaster with
Yeah,
that,
you can make a lot of
yeah.
plaster with if you need it, or I've got the milk carton size plaster deals of powder. But you want to mix that up. You want to mix it in the right consistency, about like a cake batter, and everything. You don't want it too thin. It won't hold up. It won't stay where you want to put it at. So it needs to be a little bit of thickness to it.
Okay. Is there any special tooling? Do I need a trowel? Or just maybe a 4-inch knife with this? What's the best thing to use?
You're better off having at least a 2-inch wide blade.
Okay.
Unlike a putty knife, but putty knives are narrow, and you're going to have a taping knife, which is wider, that kind of balloons out.
Right.
And that's your best bet.
Okay.
To use that. And then there is tools too that we have for making that crack, to getting the V shape to that crack. There's different types of tools that we have for edging that out too.
I had no idea that even existed.
So that makes it real easy to do it.
All right. So I get that all taken care of. I get the crack cleaned out, get it in the V shape using some of those tools that you've got available.
Right.
Cover that with the fiberglass tape.
Right.
And then I take the plaster, whether or not I'm using the premix or I bought the powder and mixed it myself. Then I take that and use at least a 2-inch knife to put that on.
To smooth it out. And then you want to smooth it out about a good 3 inches past the crack on both sides.
Okay.
On that. So you're overall about 6 inches total on the patch that you're putting on. Then you need to sand it a little bit.
Right.
On that. Okay. And then you'll need to put a secondary coat on.
Okay.
And then, and that you go out just a tad bit farther when you're feathering it. And then at the very end, you sand off all that excess around the edge of the unit of the patch, and you're ready to go. Now you're ready to paint it, prime it.
Yeah.
Want to prime it because remember, we're using a gypsum type product there.
Sure, yeah.
In that patching, and it's going to suck a lot of that liquid out of the paint. So you do have to prime it. And,
all right.
So prime it down, and then go ahead and put your paint over the top of it.
All right, so that's what we have to do when we've got a crack in the wall. Now, let's jump forward to something a little more major, and I'm thinking about something that I have in my plaster wall at home right now in the living room, and that is a hole. And the one I've got is probably about 3 inches wide and probably about 4 inches tall. So,
okay,
and so as I look in it, and I've got to dig it out because the plaster, it did not come out. It collapsed inside the wall.
Okay.
So it's concaved into the wall. So I'm assuming as I get ready to start to repair this, I need to dig all that loose stuff out.
The loose stuff you'll want out because otherwise it's going to come out along with your patch.
All right.
On that later on at a later date and time. Now, did it damage the lath behind it?
No, it did not. I
That's
do
good.
know that. Yeah, there's no broken lath behind it.
That's good. So the main thing would be to dig all of that stuff out. That gear, again, a shop vac comes in really good to suck all that dust and dirt and everything, or not dirt, but they've broken down.
Oh, there's dirt
plaster.
in there. I guarantee you that.
So it's been there for a while, huh? On that. But yeah, so you want to make sure and get that all cleaned down of there. And then this is where, again, you want to square off those edges so that it's got a good place to bite on there. Now, you also, too, they do make some latex adhesive, basically bonder. That really would be something I'd recommend on any holes of any big size and stuff like that. And what you do after you get everything all cleaned off and everything, then you come along and you just kind of put this latex bonder on. Kind of goes on with the paintbrush.
Okay.
And you can dab it all in there. And what it'll do is it helps the new plaster bond to the old plaster, so that patch really stays in there and holds.
All right, so I want to use that. Now, is a 3x4 hole, is that considered a good size hole in a plaster wall?
That's a pretty good size hole.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that in that hole that lath is good and solid back behind it.
Okay.
And it hasn't been broken loose and stuff. And then you also don't want to try and just daub on that much plaster. You want to make that's probably going to be at least a two-shot process and maybe even a 3-shot process. Because remember, we want to make sure that we don't put product in there too thick that it can't properly set up on that. So you want to do it in a couple layers, and maybe even 3 layers possibly with something that big.
All right.
And let each one of them cure out. Which doesn't take it very long. It'll take a half a day or so, but let it cure out. Then come back, put another coat on to it, and that way, then it's going to stay there. It's going to stick and stay.
You talked about using the bonding solution that we're going to put in there. Does that mean that I don't have to worry about using any of the fiberglass tape or anything like that?
Well, yeah, because the fiberglass tape on that, primarily the only reason we used the fiberglass tape was to keep that crack from continuing to crack as it goes up on that. It kind of helps bond and kind of puts a stop to it.
Okay.
And everything. So, yeah, in this type of deal, now, if that lath was broke behind it, then you got a totally different problem on that, because now you have nothing to stick in that hole that'll hold the backside of the plaster on that. So that then requires either a metal lath that you can put back in behind it, and it's kind of a cool way that you use it. Now we've got some patching squares up there that you can use on drywall. You use it on the outside of the drywall. Okay, but on the lath and plaster, you'd have to use it on the inside. But you work it inside of the hole, and then before you put it inside the hole, though, you want to take and put a string through it and tie a knot on the string on the back side of it. Okay. Then that string, then you pull it up tight against the back of the area, and take a dowel rod and roll that dowel rod up in there to tighten it up. It's kind of like putting a tourniquet pressure on, on a wound, and that way then that holds it in place while you are doing the plaster patching.
All right.
On that, but you got to have something to back up that stuff, and that's the only way to do it without tearing everything off and going to sheetrock.
All right, so that's what we want to do then, is we want to put this product, if the lath is broke, we want to put it in there so the plaster that we put in will have something to bond with that will hold it there in place.
Yeah,
so.
And you can use too, Larry, if it's a bigger than some of these patching squares, you can use like a real small 1/4 inch or smaller hardware cloth, which is that, the heavy metal fiber stuff with not like screen wire. That's a little bit too lightweight.
Right.
The other's quite a bit heavier, and you can use that.
Okay. So we put that in there. Now, our plaster, I've been around people before who like to take shortcuts. They like to, and we touched on this just briefly, but they like to make their plaster pretty thick, slap it in the hole, and if they leave it too thin, it runs out because they put too much in trying to do it too fast, or it starts to sag a little bit down at the bottom, like we do in old age sometimes. It starts to sag down there at the bottom.
Everything starts moving downward.
That is absolutely true. This is truly, for a good-sized hole, it's going to be a 2 or 3-step process to get this taken care of. 2,
3, and possibly even 4.
Okay.
It depends upon how big it is, because you've got to get, and this is another place that absolutely positively use that latex bonder, on that, because you definitely want, especially that first coat, to stick and have a place that keeps it where you put it at originally.
All right.
On that. And so you want to have it, maybe a little bit thicker than the cake cake frosting batter. It needs that first one coat. Absolutely needs to make sure it sticks where it's at. And to do that, you want to make sure it's a fairly thin coat. That first one.
After I put the first coat of plaster on there, do I need to go back in with that latex again and put another coat on there?
A big hole like that, I think I would. I'd put that latex bonder
layer it.
And each one of the layers.
Okay.
And that way then you've got a really good patch, a good solid patch.
And then continue to feather it out as I get closer to finishing the hole.
Yeah, when you get up and you start building up to the edge, that's when you still want to go ahead and feather it out a good 3 to 6 inches around on the outside. That just tends to blend it in. So, granted, on a hole that big, you probably, if you get on the side of the wall and look down the wall, you'll be able to see it. But if you're looking head on to it, like most people are going to look,
you're never going to see it.
It's going to blend right in, and you won't ever see it.
All right, so that's how we fix the cracks. That's how we fix the holes in the wall when it comes to dealing with plaster walls.
Right, and the big holes.
All right. Now, my next question is, let's say that you get this all taken care of, and you're in a house where, like I am, I don't know what color is on the wall, and I've got to match this paint. Is there something that you can do at Hydrix True Value to help me out to match the paint that I need?
Absolutely. If you need to get me a sample about the size of a quarter of that paint and bring it in, and we'll measure it with our color computer, and we'll match it up for you.
Yeah, all right. So you can match the paint. And here's the cool thing. If you have painted your wall that you are repairing and you need more paint and you already bought the paint from Hydrix True Value, you can go in and say, hey, the master bedroom had a hole in the wall. I need that paint. I don't remember what it is. They can magically go to the computer and tell you what color you had. That's what I love about Hydrix True Value.
That's a great thing. You don't have to. But, anytime, one thing I might mention about painting, patching something like that, even the very best paint tinter cannot tint it to where a little piece right in the very middle, you can touch it up and not be noticeable.
Right.
But if you absolutely want to hide it, if you'll just kind of work your way to a corner, or because a corner has that shadow. Sure. And then you can blend it right through there, and then you'll never know. Yeah. That there ever was anything.
We call that finagling in our house. So sometimes you got to finagle it just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Get it taken care of. So, but boy, the service you get from the paint department, everything else at Hydrix True Value, just beyond belief. When you walk in and say, this is the problem that I have, and I don't know what I'm going to do about it. Guess what? There are professionals at Hydrix True Value that can lead you step by step to get through and get those projects taken care of, and not only get them taken care of, but to make it look like a professional actually pulled off that project inside your home. And I mean that's a priceless tool that's available at Hydrix True Value.
Well, we feel it's our job to make sure that to enable people to have a job well done.
Yeah. And there is no one that can fail at a project easier than I can. So it's nice to know that I've got people that I can rely on. So, and the great thing is, too, if I need a big tool, I can just go right next door to the Just Ask Rental Center. I can rent the tool that I need there. Again, get that professional advice about what I need, how to use it. And I can rent it for as little as 4 hours, or I can rent it for as long as a month if I need to.
A month if you need to. Yeah, right. Yeah, hopefully the project won't take a month.
I hope not. So I hope not. So, but and this is, at least for me, because I am not what people would consider a handyman. I can do things around the house, but I'm not the handyman. I sometimes I'm a little bit worried to get started on a project, because you know how it goes. You start on this, I start to patch a plaster wall. The next thing I know, I've got to reside the house because something was connected to it that I've messed up along the way. So getting that advice not only helps me get the project done, but can save me some money in the long run as well.
Yes, yeah, and then plus you get that satisfaction saying, hey, I did that myself, and everything. And like you say, a lot of projects are that way, Larry, where a guy just a little bit apprehensive about getting started. But I know every once in a while, some of my projects that I'm like that on, after I get done, I say, why did I wait? Why did I put that off for so long? It was a lot easier than I thought it was.
I do a lot better with projects sometimes when I can see someone else do it first. And with the technology that we have available today, we have professionals from True Value that can actually, on your computer, they can give you a demonstration on how to do some of these things, and that's available through your website.
Right through our website. Go to heidrichstruevalue.com, click on the projects tab up at the top, and you can either, if you're one of those that like to read about a project, you can print off a project right there and read all the particulars, the steps to go through, or a lot of times they have videos on that very same project that you can see somebody doing it.
Yeah, and this is a cool thing too. You can print out the sheet, and it gives you exactly what you need to do that project. So just take it in and say, this is what I'm going to need. So
bring it in. We'll be more than happy to fill that list up for you.
Yeah, and because I've done that. I've also had you guys go, well, you really don't need this. So that saved me some money in the long run as well. So
exactly.
It's nice to know that's there. So
they've always got those extra things, but your project may not be exactly like the one they're doing, so you may not need that.
All right, heidrichstruevalue.com. That's the place to go to find them online. Available on Facebook now.
Yes, yeah. Well, Facebook, like this project here, is posted right on Facebook, so people can go there and take a look at it there on that. And so we're trying to come into the 21st century.
You're there already. Trust me, you're there. All right, open today until 6 o'clock.
On
open
Saturdays.
Tomorrow on Sunday from 1 until 5. So
exactly.
If you need some things tomorrow afternoon, you can stop in and get those taken care of. So, Demi, as always, we appreciate you taking the time to come in and talk to us today about getting these cracks and holes in our plaster walls taken care of.
I enjoy it.
All right. Hey, Denny, we'll see you next Saturday.
Okay, Larry.
Denny Heidrich, our guest this morning, he comes in on the best little home improvement show in the 4 states.
Heidrich's True Value Hardware.